something really strange has people talking. Charlie Kirk, one of the most well-known conservative figures in America, was suddenly gone. But what really shocked everyone wasn't just what happened to him, it was how quickly his wife, Erika, seemed to move on. Within days, she was smiling in videos, running his organization, and appearing side by side with the new vice president, J.D. Vance. And people couldn't help asking, is this how someone truly grieving behaves? Or is something else going on here? Today, we're breaking down why Joe Rogan thinks this whole story just doesn't add up. And trust me, some of the details are seriously strange. Let's rewind. Charlie Kirk founded Turning Point USA, one of the biggest conservative youth movements in the country. He had millions of followers, was close with Donald Trump, and even received one of America's highest honors, the Medal of Freedom. So when tragedy struck during one of his public events, the entire country stopped and watched in disbelief. Cameras everywhere, a packed arena. It was heartbreaking. You'd expect his family, especially his wife, to disappear from the spotlight for a while, to grieve privately, right? But that's not what happened. Almost immediately, Erika stepped forward, giving speeches, taking over as CEO, selling new merchandise, even hosting her late husband's podcast. She appeared calm, confident, and often smiling, which, of course, had people online wondering, how? And then came the photos and videos, Erika looking very close with J.D. Vance. Hands in hair, long hugs, soft smiles. The internet lit up. Speculation exploded. And Joe Rogan? He decided to look into it. Now, if you know Joe Rogan, you know he doesn't just take the official story at face value. He questions everything, especially when the details don't line up. And in this case, there were a lot of details that didn't make sense. First off, the story around what happened that day. According to reports, the person responsible was a 21-year-old using an old World War I-era weapon. Supposedly, he carried it in pieces inside a backpack, climbed up onto a rooftop, and somehow managed to put it all back together unnoticed. Then everything unfolded in front of thousands of people and countless cameras. Joe Rogan's reaction on his show was simple. That's not how this works. Because putting together a vintage rifle isn't like assembling something from a hardware store. It requires tools, patience, and serious skill. Even experts would struggle to do it fast, let alone in a tense, public setting. And this 21-year-old, according to records, had no military experience, no gunsmith training, nothing. Joe joked that unless this kid had been secretly training like an action movie hero for months, the story just didn't hold up. And honestly, many people agreed. Then things got even stranger. There was reportedly another man at the scene who started yelling that he was the one responsible, causing total confusion. And when people tried to dig deeper into who that man was, they discovered he'd been present at other major national incidents too. Soon after, he was arrested on unrelated charges, and any chance to question him further was gone. To this day, no one seems to have a clear explanation. So now, the internet is left with two big questions. What really happened that day? And why does Erika Kirk seem to be living as if nothing ever did? Joe Rogan didn't say he had proof of a conspiracy, but he did what he always does: ask questions that others were too nervous to ask. He pointed out the inconsistencies, the emotional oddities, and the unanswered details that just didn't sit right. Because when a public figure's life and legacy end in chaos, and the people closest to them act like everything's fine, it makes the world wonder, are we seeing the full story, or just the version we're supposed to believe? Whatever you believe, one thing is clear. The situation around Charlie Kirk's death, Erika's quick rise to power, and the strange moments with J.D. Vance have turned into one of the most talked about mysteries online. And Joe Rogan's deep dive only made it bigger. So what do you think? Is this just a series of coincidences? Or is there more beneath the surface?
He took it apart and then put it back together again. Shut the fuck up. Do you know how much time it would take to do that if you were highly skilled?
To disassemble a gun.
To disassemble a rifle so that you can get it in a backpack. And by the way, not going to fit. Not going to fit. And then somehow or another reconnects it once he gets off the roof.
Now, this next part is where things start to sound unbelievable. Right after the incident, there was total chaos at the scene. In the middle of it all, one man suddenly started yelling, "I did it! I did it!" over and over again. And then, out of nowhere, he began acting erratically, completely out of place in that moment. Strange enough, right? But when people online started digging into who this man was, things only got weirder. Because apparently, this same individual has appeared at several major national events over the years, moments that made history. He was reportedly seen near 9/11, at the Boston Marathon bombing, and even connected to a few false alarm incidents in the past. Joe Rogan broke it down on his show and asked the question everyone was thinking: what are the odds? How could the same person show up around so many unrelated tragedies? Statistically, it seems almost impossible. Rogan joked that either this man is completely out of his mind, or, as he put it, professionally insane, meaning maybe he's being used as a distraction. Someone who shows up to confuse, to divert attention, to make a scene when something serious is going on. And here's where it gets even more suspicious. Right after all this, that same man was taken into custody, not for anything connected to the incident, but for entirely different charges. Which means now he's unreachable. No interviews, no statements, no answers.
Convenient, right?
That's exactly what Joe Rogan pointed out. How every time people start asking the tough questions, the trail just seems to disappear.
Of all, there was that one guy who was the decoy. All right, so you got this guy who's an older guy who starts yelling out. Didn't he take his pants down? Took his pants down? This guy was at 9/11. He was at the Boston bombing.
All the hits.
He called in a fake bomb at another place, and then he did this at this thing. Right after, so somehow or another, this guy has the state of mind that the moment someone gets shot, he yells out and says, I did it, and takes his pants down or something like that. I don't know exactly what he did. Then, ready for this? He gets arrested for child porn right away.
Right after this happened?
Oh, right away. He's in jail for child porn. Why is that? Well, now you can't answer.
Joe Rogan also questioned whether the official version of events even made sense from a practical point of view. According to reports, the shooter was a 21-year-old positioned roughly 200 yards away, lying flat on a rooftop. That's quite a distance. And as Joe pointed out, yes, with the right equipment and training, such a shot is technically possible. If someone has a well-tuned rifle and professional instructions, say, from a trained marksman or a Navy SEAL, they could probably make that shot under ideal conditions. But that's where the logic stops making sense. Because everything else about this story feels off. The old rifle that supposedly fit into a backpack, even though experts say that's nearly impossible. The fact that no one from security noticed a person climbing onto a roof in broad daylight, with a direct view of the stage. The strange man who caused chaos right after, shouting that he was responsible, and then vanished from the story. And the quick, unrelated arrest that shut down any further questions. Joe's reaction on his podcast was blunt. None of this adds up. And he said something that really stuck with people. He explained that if someone wanted the public to stop believing any version of the truth, all they'd have to do is flood the story with confusion. Add a dozen strange, unbelievable details. Make everything sound so wild that no one knows what to believe anymore. In Joe's words, it's a way to make people give up, to stop asking questions. Because when every piece of the puzzle feels off, people start assuming that maybe the truth doesn't even exist. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what's happening here.
Story is horseshit. Like, none of these things make any sense to me. Like, you're telling me that this kid who's not military trained, this guy, first of all, how did he get to the roof? How come nobody was looking? How come nobody was like, there's a direct line of sight between where he's sitting and those roofs? You guys didn't check? You don't have a drone? Like, that's insane. So he's on the roof, he shoots, he jumps from the roof. He jumps down 14 feet.
Yeah, we saw didn't they have video of him jump? Somebody had a cell.
Now, let's talk about Erika Kirk, because her behavior after Charlie's death has left a lot of people puzzled. Of course, everyone grieves in their own way. There's no single right way to respond to loss. But still, something about how quickly Erika seemed to bounce back caught people's attention. Just days after losing her husband, in one of the most public tragedies imaginable, she was back in front of cameras, smiling, speaking at events, hosting shows, running the company her husband founded, and people online noticed. One viral TikTok summed it up perfectly. It's not about judging her grief. It's about how strange it looks when someone seems so calm, so composed so soon. It wasn't anger people felt. It was confusion. How could someone who just went through something so devastating appear so unaffected? And that question started spreading fast, from social media to podcasts to even major news commentary.
This woman is not grieving anything. She skipped straight to acceptance. This is most definitely PR, and they're using your grief for marketing.
And honestly, when you watch some of those clips, it's hard not to notice what people are talking about. Erika doesn't look like someone in deep mourning. She's not breaking down on camera or trying to hold back tears. Instead, she appears composed, even cheerful at times. Now, of course, that doesn't automatically mean anything. But online, people started dissecting every little detail, especially what she was wearing at memorial events. One TikTok user put it this way: "It's not that she's smiling, it's that everything about her presentation feels like a performance, not grief." Others echoed the same thought, that her public appearances looked more like a campaign than a farewell. And that observation, fair or not, fueled even more speculation about what was really going on behind the scenes.
It seems a bit inappropriate to mourn your husband, who was literally taken out for the entire world to see.
Again, maybe this all comes down to personal style. Maybe Erika simply doesn't follow the traditional expectations of how someone should grieve. But when you combine that with everything else that's been happening, it's easy to see why people are asking questions. Because Erika didn't step away from the spotlight, she stepped directly into it. Within days, she became the new CEO of Turning Point USA, the very organization Charlie founded. She gave 3 major speeches in less than a week, one of them to a packed stadium. And while Charlie's own family remained quiet, Erika was the one standing on stage, front and center. She also began hosting his podcast, launching new merchandise, and putting her face on nearly every public platform associated with his brand. And as one TikTok user pointed out, it almost feels like she didn't just take over, she took charge. To some, it looked like strength. To others, it looked planned. And that's what's driving so much of the conversation online. Whether Erika's quick return to the public eye is a sign of resilience, or something much more complicated.
TikTok user pointed out,
Isn't it strange how a widow stepped into the CEO role? She did 3 speeches already, one at a stadium. Charlie's family didn't even speak, and she's selling t-shirts. And is already hosting her husband's podcast. Now doing an all-American halftime show with performers. She's not even home with her 2 young children who just lost their dad.
Think about that for a moment. Your husband, a national figure, just lost his life in front of the entire world. You have 2 young children at home, both trying to understand what just happened. And yet, instead of taking time away to be with them, Erika is back on stage, giving speeches, running meetings, hosting podcasts. One particular video especially caught people's attention. In it, Erika is at the Turning Point USA office, showing staff members the Presidential Medal of Freedom that former President Trump had awarded to Charlie, one of the highest honors a civilian can receive. You'd expect that moment to be emotional, maybe quiet, reflective, even bittersweet. But instead, Erika is smiling, laughing, full of energy, almost celebratory. And that's what made viewers pause. One comment under the video said, "Why does she seem so happy? Her husband just passed." It wasn't said in anger, it was confusion. Because on camera, Erika didn't look like someone mourning a loss. She looked like someone moving forward. And that difference between what people expected and what they saw is what really started fueling the online conversation.
Of our Turning Point USA family, but I want you guys all to see the Medal of Freedom and be able to look at it in the back of it. You guys are all part of the legacy. So we put it in on the back. It's the first and last time I'll put a cross on it. Yeah, you guys. I literally will stay here so all of you. Like I don't care. Everyone can have their moment and see. Let me see. Yeah, where's it? Thank you.
Erika has also been making public statements, talking about the future of Turning Point USA, teasing new projects, even saying how excited she is for the content she's planning to release. Now, sure, life has to go on. Organizations need leadership, and someone has to step up. But the timing is what really caught people off guard. These weren't comments made months later. They came just days after her husband's death. One TikTok user summed it up perfectly. It's not that she's working. It's that she's already planning the next chapter like nothing happened. And that's what people keep coming back to. It's not about judging grief. It's about the speed, the tone, the almost seamless transition from tragedy to business as usual. For many, it feels less like healing and more like moving on.
It's definitely PR, and they're using your grief for marketing. And the fact that Charlie Kirk's assassination is still being covered up, she is still walking around with the same security from September 10th, saying she's so excited for the new content that she'll be releasing.
And when you look at everything together, the quick rise to power, the upbeat public appearances, the constant talk about the future, it makes people wonder, is this genuine grief or a carefully managed PR strategy? That's where things take another turn. Because recently, people online have started pointing out something unusual between Erika Kirk and Vice President J.D. Vance. Their interactions, the smiles, the closeness at public events, have sparked a wave of speculation. One TikTok in particular went completely viral. The creator shared a theory, and it's a wild one. They claimed that behind the scenes, there's an effort to position Erika as a potential replacement for J.D. Vance's wife, Usha Vance. According to the video, it's not just about politics anymore, it's about image. They're building a new power couple for America. Now, that theory might sound far-fetched, but the reason it spread so fast is because people already felt that something about Erika's behavior didn't add up. And when you combine that with how close she suddenly seems to the vice president, it only fuels the idea that maybe, just maybe, there's more to this story than meets the eye.
They are trying to replace Usha Vance with Erika Kirk, because Erika Kirk and J.D. Vance is their Christian nationalist wet dream, and you won't convince me otherwise.
Now, I know that theory sounds pretty extreme, but when people online started comparing the details, they said it began to look, at least on the surface, a little too convenient. J.D. Vance is a young, rising political figure with deep conservative roots. His wife, Usha, tends to stay out of the spotlight and keeps her personal life private. Erika, on the other hand, is now front and center in the conservative world. Young, charismatic, openly faith-driven, and suddenly appearing alongside J.D. Vance at event after event. Clips began circulating online showing the two of them interacting, hugging, talking closely, sharing what some viewers described as unusually personal moments. These weren't quick, polite greetings. In a few of the videos, JD's hand is seen brushing through her hair or holding her around the waist, and that's what set off a wave of speculation. One TikTok user asked bluntly, "Why are they acting like this in public so soon after everything that's happened?" It wasn't just gossip, it was a genuine question about perception, timing, and boundaries. Because when the personal and political worlds collide this fast, people start to wonder if there's a bigger story waiting to unfold behind the scenes.
With this body language, when did we start putting our hands up in the hair of our friends when we hug? Yeah, no, you don't. This is weird. Oh, and then there's this one. JD, why are your hands so low? There's no reason for them to be on her hips, but there they are.
This is normally how a really freshly widowed woman interacts with a married man who she is not related to. Everyone agrees.
Another viewer commented, "This isn't how a recently widowed woman interacts with a married man she isn't related to." And honestly, a lot of people agreed. Sure, friends can hug, that's normal. But when you actually watch these clips, it doesn't look like a brief, comforting embrace. It looks longer, closer, more personal. And that's why so many people online are calling it unusual. But this next moment might be the one that really pushed the internet over the edge. At a recent Turning Point USA event, Erika took the stage to introduce J.D. Vance. And what she said caught everyone's attention. Standing at the podium, she smiled and said,